So now it's my pleasure to introduce my partner, my friend, and the co-conductor of this event. So, Neville.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abraham. And that's a very wide spectrum, but hopefully an introduction as to what's about to follow. And all the people that follow me are going to have their own little specialist areas that are very unique in many respects, but they all come together, as we'll see at the end. So where do I fit in all this? Well, I work in the realm of performance. I'm in business through and through, corporate life, SME life, 45 years in business, international business. And the key thing is, it's not just about business performance, but team performance, more importantly, personal performance. So next slide. And on this slide, you'll see, if you look at yourself as an individual or your organization, whether this is your life or your professional life, and look at yourself as a jigsaw, you'll see actually the jigsaw has got many, many parts that haven't been identified or even filled in. And the more you look at yourself, actually, the bigger the picture in the middle becomes empty. So let's not worry about that too much. But it's your personal journey. So you're going to fill up this jigsaw. Now, just for a minute, imagine all of the people that you aspire to. You know, whether it's Elon Musk or Richard Branson or a great political leader, whoever that is, how do you think they fill their jigsaw? Do they fill it by predefined pieces and then they go and solve the piece? Or do they reflect on what they've done and create a piece that fits somewhere? Now, while you're thinking about the answer is they do both. So they actually design where they're going, but they also reflect on where they've been. So they're constantly changing the shape of that jigsaw. So moving further on, let's move into a more detailed arena. So next slide, please. Now, this was my introduction. I left corporate life in 2002. I'd had enough at the ripe old age of 43 years old, and I retired. I was fortunate enough to work in the oil and gas industry, which gave me a nice big lump sum to basically do nothing about. However, my wife, being who she is, kicked me out of the house and said, "You're not staying in the house doing nothing for the rest of your life. Get out there and do something." And I did, and I found this. And going back to the jigsaw's a map. We create our own maps around the world we live. And if you live in a VUCA world, by the way, we all live in a VUCA world, get over it. It's there. You can't affect the world, you can only affect what you do. Well, this is a map. This is the first behavioral map that I stumbled upon in the early 2000s. A guy called Graham Williams had designed this with from the John Whitmore School of Coaching. So if anyone knows, John Whitmore was the first person really to bring sports coaching into the business world. So this has its origins in John Whitmore's teachings, if you like. Now I'm going to explain the map very simply, but I want you to focus on the top piece. Where people consistently operate from dictates our success or failure. And I'm sure most people have heard of the saying, if you think you can do something or you think you can't do something, you're right. Well, that was Henry Ford back in the 1920s. And be honest with you, he's absolutely right. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So as you can see, if you were to look at the continuum in psychology, can't do is on the left at the bottom, can do is on the right at the top. But there's this little dog leg to the right. They won't do. These are the saboteurs in the corporate world that do things for the benefit of themselves and for the organization. But if it's not for the benefit of themselves, they don't do it. So they really do make things not happen. And all the can't do people, as I've put little boxes here, they just ignore things and avoid it. So I'm an accountant, okay? So I know people that they get a very difficult invoice at the end of the day, let's say it's 4:30, and they'll think, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll stick it in the top drawer. And they'll come in the following morning and they still think it's difficult to do, and it's still there literally until month end, and all of a sudden the floodgates open. That's the reality. You know, these people are can't do's. They ignore and avoid. The won't do's make excuses and block. Oh, we've done it before and it didn't work. Not we've done it before, it didn't work, but let's see if we can make a few changes to see if it works. Then you're a can-do person. So these can-do people explore and they act. And each in these three stations, there are four things always going on: how we think, how we feel, what drives us, and our social connectivity. It's a different way of looking at the brain, but all of these four elements are always in place no matter what you're doing. And the key to that is what you're driven by. A lot of people will call this the purpose. Dr. Abraham and I have a lot of discussions about what drives you, what's your purpose. Hopefully, as the end of this session comes on, you'll find out exactly what does drive us. Okay, next slide. Now, what MindFit do, just very briefly, is that we work across the whole spectrum. We work with the C-suite, right the way down to the shop floor, with small businesses, collaborative businesses, but also with long-term unemployed, homeless, refugees. Everything we do works in all of these areas, because all we're doing is developing can-do people. But what we have is, in our C-suite arena, we have two choice programs, two flagship programs. One is called our Predator program, and the other one is called our Reality-Driven Leaders roles. Now, within reality-driven leadership, and notice the words reality-driven, you don't work in the land of perception. You've created that jigsaw and you have been honest with yourself of how you're going to fill that jigsaw. So in essence, we have 5 things that goes on in a reality leader. And those 5 things are in anything we do. So it doesn't have to be the C-suite, but it could be a junior level entry. So it's how we literally navigate around what we're doing. And the first one is we need to investigate. We need to look at the reality. What's going on in this organization? Not what people are saying it is, not what HR have come up with a nice little questionnaire. You know, we go and delve into the reality and we investigate what's there. And then we need to, once we've investigated, we need to try and innovate around that investigation. Because again, it's going to be new. Whether it's VUCA or whether it's what other reason, it's a new thing. So we need to take that suggestion of what's going on and innovate around it. And then we need to navigate that into a very complex arena that we're currently working in. So in other words, we've got to change what we do in quite a complex navigational type of way. Then we didn't measure it, because there's no point in making a change if you don't measure it. And once you've measured it, you can then go back and say, did it work? And we can investigate more. So this is a perpetual circle here, which is all internal, but there's one external role, and I will call it the non-exec, because we need to look what's happening elsewhere. Can we take something from another industry and bring it into ours? That's actually, to be honest with you, I think they should redefine what a non-exec does. You know, because you don't need a non-exec that's very good in your own world. You need a non-exec to challenge your world and bring in other things that are happening elsewhere. I'm a non-exec in a number of companies, and I bring in what's working really well in different industries into the industries we're talking about. It's so easy to do, but if you've got a can-do attitude, and that's where this resilience issue we always come back to. People that are very resilient have a can-do attitude. It was even said in the presentation right at the very beginning. So next slide, please. This is at the other end of the scale. It's a book I put together a little while ago, Everything You Should Have Learned at School But Didn't. It's nothing to do with academics. It's everything to do with soft skills and attitude.
Assalamualaikum everyone. Arush Malik, a contributor to the book.
And I'm one of the contributors to this book by Neville called Everything You Should Have Learned in School But Didn't.
Hi, this is Rosin, one of the contributors to Everything You Should Have Learned.
Assalamualaikum everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce the beautiful book created
by a galaxy of professionals from all around the world, led by Neville Graham.
Hello everyone, this is Rosina Asif from Islamabad.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, namaste. I'm Asma Tariq. I'm from Gujarat, Pakistan. I'm one of the
Imagine having over a dozen mentors accessible to you, sharing openly and freely their struggles, their breakthroughs, their achievements. Wouldn't that be?
That's just a snippet of who's contributed to that book. The book's freely available. Anyone would like it, please contact Abraham and we'll arrange to get you a copy. But it comes back to this now word that I always use all the time, collaboration, because the reason why collaboration is difficult is because it's got too many syllables. Collaboration, 5 syllables. And you try to do that on a discovery arena. You know, it's really quite difficult to work out how people collaborate. Now, I've come from the most competitive industry in the world in oil and gas, and yet without collaboration, we wouldn't be paying the same price for gas. Trust me, it would be very, very expensive. So we've had to go through this collaboration route. So I work with very competitive people around the world. That's helped me to see things in a slightly different perspective than normally. Oil and gas is the only collaborative industry in the world. Anyone wants to challenge me on that, please do. If we can have a discussion on LinkedIn, we can even have a panel on LinkedIn if you like, but it is the only collaboration industry in the world. If we go on to the next slide, because this is now why I report collaboration, because this is where Dr. Abraham and I met. He was there with Mindful Joyce. We met over LinkedIn. He and I literally had several discussions backwards and forwards about MindFit being action-based and his background being thinking. So between us, we commonly say he's the thinker, I'm the doer. But we've come together with this word resilience, because no matter how easy our programs are to do, they're a lot easier if you've built internal resilience. If someone shouts at you, but are shouting some very interesting words you should be listening to, and your resilience is so high, you're listening, then you'll take on that feedback, because that's all it is, it's feedback. So and if you look around the world, all of the best leaders in the world are highly resilient. It's as far as they're concerned, it's not personal, which is ironic, because once you've got yourself in the business, there's nothing more than being personal than being in the business. In fact, a good friend of mine wrote, It's Business, It's Personal, an interesting book. And of course it's personal, but you need to be able to take that personal out of business decisions. And that's where, again, where resilience comes in. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation. I'm just going to finish on that little umbrella, because once we're resilient to anything, then actually life's a lot easier.